Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Convergence. I'm excited today to have Santos Hernandez with me. We met, I guess it was in January at a talk about AI, and you were on the panel and I was there emceeing, and we sort of hit it off and started talking about your company. And Santos, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Great to have you. I'd love for you to tell our guests a little bit about your background, and then let's talk about your company, and then let's just sort of jam from there on what's happening and what you're seeing as somebody who truly has their pulse, on what's happening out in the marketplace right now. Let's talk about Zebedee first. Tell me a little bit about Zebedee, what it does, and how you're involved.
Yeah, so Zebedee is a company, it's a fintech for the gaming industry, but recently we've began to broaden our horizons. So we have a payment system that's built on top of Bitcoin's Lightning Network, which enables instant global payments for extremely cheap, along with micropayment support. So there's all kinds of new interesting applications that we're seeing being built on top of our platform, and kind of new monetization models, as well as like new things that you can do with money, since you can just send it around everywhere, new markets that you can enter, and all kinds of fascinating things.
So with Zebedee, are we talking about payment for the purchase of games? Are we talking about microtransactions inside games? Are we talking about putting your money where your mouth is in Call of Duty and saying, hey, look, we're going to bet a little bit of cash on this, which is actually a thing. A lot of people don't realize that's been a thing, which actually came from Gabriel Cruz. I don't know if you know Gabriel, but created Duel like 10 years ago here in town that was essentially, I don't think he would ever say it was a betting platform, but it was a contest platform for gamers.
Skill-based wager.
So yeah. Skill-based. There you go. Thank you. I should bring an attorney onto the show to just interrupt occasionally and say things like that. But is that what aspect of gaming are you talking about? Are you talking about payment micro transactions, contests? Where does that fall?
That's a wonderful question. Thanks for asking that. So within I'll kind of approach it from two different angles. We have partners that use our APIs. Basically, they can hook into our platform to process payments, similar to something like what Stripe would allow, but for Bitcoin's Lightning Network. And they allow Lightning Network enables Bitcoin to move at the speed of the internet, basically. So as freely as information. So with that context in mind, we have built like a plethora of products. We have one called like the Zebedee app using our platform, which is kind of like this power user application where you can discover other Bitcoin applications. You have like a full wallet feature, so you can send and receive money over the Lightning Network. You can send it to your friends that are also on Zebedee, and you can discover games like our partners that have integrated Bitcoin into like their mobile apps. So you can kind of play games, watch the model is you can watch ads, and we're earning revenue, or the companies are earning revenue from watching the ads, and they give a percentage of that ad revenue back to the users, so that that incentivizes the users to play their games. It's a point of differentiation. Sure. And we've noticed like massive KPI increases for businesses, especially as it relates to like retention and like customer acquisition, to make it more profitable. Make those titles more profitable, and even in some cases revitalize some titles that were previously kind of falling stale. So that's kind of like the angle of the Zebedee app and kind of what some of our gaming partners are doing. We do have some other interesting things going on. We have a Zebedee Streamer product, which allows you, like we're on today, to actually put a QR code on your screen, and anyone can now pay you directly. And you can receive money from your audience, so they can tip you. We have bots products, so you can text money as easy as like sending an email or sending a text message. And then our partners, we recently just announced that we have an esports platform. Their name is Dubs, and they integrated our API to now do like tournaments. So they have a payout for the first place of this Fortnite tournament. It'll be like $750, I believe. So now we're kind of like expanding into all these different use cases. The last one that I would mention is this company Fountain. Fountain is like this new podcasting application where as a podcaster, you can put your podcast on it. The audience can do boosts, which are like tips to send you money directly, or even stream you money per minute. So they can send you like 10 Satoshis, which is a fraction of a cent. And for those that don't know, Satoshis are like the cents to dollars, but for Bitcoin, it's like the smallest unit. So they're streaming you money. They can send you one-off boost with comments so you can see them. And as a listener, you're actually earning money as well. As you listen to podcasts, you're getting small bits of Satoshis. So it's really cool.
Okay, so as somebody that runs 5 podcasts, I'm now over in the other. If I'm not paying attention, Santos, it's because I'm signing up for Fountain on the other. I'm like, I might as well sign up for this thing. I think you're right. I think what you're talking about, which is really interesting, is a trend that's out right now, and this is this concept of augmentation. And I think companies are starting to understand that they can augmentate their user experience with other technologies and use cases. They can start to accept things like Bitcoin. They can take a game that usually wouldn't have a payment platform other than for microtransactions or to purchase the game, and they can add an element to it that is a little bit unique and different. That's super valuable, and it's because it's a little bit more decentralized. It's not all the money going to the man. And I'll give you a great example. Last night on a crowdfunding site crowdsourcing site that I use for a lot of different contractors called Fiverr, I gave a lady who did a great job. I gave her a tip of $5. And I looked at my credit card statement this morning, and Fiverr charged me $2.37 to take the $5 from me. And then they take 25% of the $5 and pass on to her $3.75. They're taking 60% of the transaction, right? And I'm like, I wasn't tipping you, Mr. Fiverr. I was tipping Nahid, who did a great job for me yesterday with my new book release and is helping me with some things. I'm like, that's a little bit bullshit, right? So I appreciate that decentralization, moving it outside the platform, but also seeing companies start to augment their experience and say, you know what? Sometimes it's better to have a third party handle this for us because we aren't an expert at payments. We're not an expert at the Lightning Network. We're an expert at making games. So hand it off to somebody else that can do it better. And so that's very interesting. Let's maybe transition that a little bit into how AI, because that's sort of what the premise of AI is the augmentation. Everybody's talking about job replacement. I'm thinking about augmented individuals and augmented organizations that can utilize these technologies to make themselves more efficient.
Yeah, I totally agree 100%. And just kind of riffing on what you previously said, I also founded a company called Emeralize. It's an e-learning platform, emeralize.app. It uses the Lightning Network, and this relates to AI too. And this is where I bridge the gap between the Lightning Network and AI in kind of some direction that I'm heading in. So I noticed the same problem. Udemy takes 70% for customers that they bring in for you, right? And Fiverr does the same. I lowered the fee to 2% because I can process payments more efficiently. I only get charged 1% to process payments right now using the Lightning Network with no base fee. So this is going to be a great point of differentiation and also like lowering costs to bring in more customers. And what makes it interesting is for Emeralize, my vision is like a new education system. And I know that's kind of grand, but I'm starting off with the marketplace to bring in revenue first and like a little small learning management system where users can like watch videos, courses, etc. And my goal is to bring in like AI APIs from AI, like OpenAI or something along those lines, to then like allow users to use summary as a service. So where I think the microtransaction plays in with AI is we already use AI to do tasks like, for example, for our OKRs.
Say what OKR is again, just so people don't understand.
Objective and key results. It's like a framework that Google created.
It's outside of the KPI sort of understanding, but because a lot of executives use the word KPI, but this is a little bit of a different version of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I fed in my key results, the goals that I want to get done for the quarter for our team, and I had it generate an objective for me that kind of unifies like all of these goals into a statement that's easy to kind of read and relate these key results to. And that got me that saved me probably 45 minutes of time for me having to manually generate, this sentence and revise, edit, like have to think about what it is that I want to say, what actually the goal is. So that was one practical use case. And I'm thinking, generating flashcards. So like taking this course material, these resources, and using AI to feed it in all of the context of the course and then generate flashcards for the user to study, and maybe paying like a fraction of a Bitcoin, like a few thousand sats to use this as a service.
Yeah.
And if it only costs you 100 Satoshis, but you generate 2,000 Satoshis, it's very economical to do. And you can price it very specific to the amount of compute that you're using. So I think there's some interesting business models that can be applied there. For creators, generating course content, feeding it in a bunch of courses, right, that you own, and then using it to help you create, using it to help you video edit, all of these things that will save you time. So instead of it like necessarily like obsoleting jobs, I think it'll only make you more efficient and make you more well-rounded as like an individual.
Well, listen, Santos, people are going to think this is a total theme of the show, but my last guest is a chief technology officer for a very large e-learning company. And so I think I need to connect you two together because there's so many, it's really interesting to hear a similar perspective coming from multiple different voices from different parts of the country, right? Where people are starting to look at AI and say, there's an opportunity here that is very different than what we've experienced in the past. And listen, I mean, knowledge is power, right? Information is power. And what AI is bringing to us is the ability to augment our own intelligence with something that can do it just a little bit faster, in some cases a little bit better. And, here we sit on, the 7th of April, and Microsoft announced this morning that they believe they've uncovered some AGI occurring inside their AI program. And I was really sort of surprised at that. And I think most people at this point of the show understand we're talking about artificial general intelligence, where AI becomes actually better at us than thinking. And the end, well, I love how people say the end goal is singularity, where AI is better than us at everything. But to me, that sounds like the starting point. I don't think many people are thinking beyond the moment where we say, well, now AI is better than us at everything. Well, what's the world look like on the flip of that? And how does AGI evolve itself to become more and more and more powerful once that event occurs? I will tell you, I've had guests on this show over the last 6 months that have said, well, within 100 years, we'll have to deal with this. Microsoft saying this morning, we might be dealing with this by Saturday morning. so, I don't know, 100 years, 24 hours, time is being compressed. Time is becoming a tetrahedron. It's becoming exponential in every direction simultaneously. And I think those are the things that we have to be thinking about. And we also have to recognize that I think I love what you're working on, because let's be honest, even if we reach a point where AI becomes better at us than many things, that might free us up to truly use our minds towards critical thinking and knowledge acquisition and wisdom and storytelling and all the stuff that really matters, but we don't get a chance to do it very often because we got to go to the 9 to 5 and, we got to drop the kids off at soccer practice and there's a school play tonight. I'm a proponent of thinking of a world where we can reduce some of those barriers and augment our own reality by the use of machines that make it so that we can actually be humans, not living in the concrete jungle kind of thing. Sorry, I had to go philosophize on you there, my friend.
Oh, one of my favorite podcasts.
I am a futurist.
One of my favorite podcasts, actually, that taught me a lot of philosophy is Philosophize This. So I'm a big proponent of philosophy, and I totally agree. One of my visions is to help basically my mission is to help individuals become the best versions of themselves and do more of what they love. And I think as we can feed AI a lot of these tasks that are just manual or repetitive tasks, but of the same nature, it'll only free up our time more to acquire more knowledge, as you were saying, to learn new skills and innovate ultimately in different directions. And for example, there is a new protocol that was invented by one of my colleagues, Fiat Joff, and it is now allowing users to become censorship resistant, to not have to worry about their followings being, taken from them if they're banned off a particular platform like Facebook or Twitter, which we've seen a lot of in the past. So now you can make one post from either locally on your computer, running the software on your computer, or going to a website, and it goes to a bunch of different computers to be stored. So if one software app bans you, you can go to another and still fetch your data. If one server shuts you down, then you have your data on a bunch of other servers. And really, It's being used beyond like cases of social media now. It's being used in the case of like Substack and like blog articles. Jack Dorsey's on there, and he's publishing content there and like actively funding the space. Edward Snowden's there, a few other like folks. Michael Saylor.
What is the space called again? That sounds like my kind of jam.
It's called the protocol is called Nostr. You can find an app called Damus on iOS or Amethyst on Android, and I can share those links with you. But this is kind of what I'm getting to, is that if we have AI doing more of the spreadsheets, doing more of the documentation writing, you can just feed it code. Engineers like being able to ask the AI questions about generating applications. Now, all you need to do is have an idea, and you can say, all right, for this idea, generate me this application. This is the flows. Okay. Now that I have these designs, they're always like not perfect, so you have to modify them a bit as a human. Then pass it in to an AI that's focused on engineering, or if it's an AGI, then it could probably generate it for engineering tasks for you as well. Then you can say, oh, for this application, come up with positioning and brand for me. Now you have positioning and brand. Create a social media strategy, and post for me. Then you can go out and post it. And the speed that we're moving from like idea to product in market, to test the idea in the marketplace by humans and seeing if it's actually like a good idea and people willing to pay for it, will decrease, which to me, that's a great thing, because now all of us are becoming more self-sovereign. We're all focused on like our own companies. We're all innovating in the areas that we see that need to be progressed, like problems that we see, we're able to actively like solve it. And I think we'll all become more creators in that regard. So I think it'll only reduce like the skill cap needed for like everybody to become a creator in that true sense of the word. And I think that the world would be a better place if there's so many problems that exist, right? Imagine if every single human being was now empowered enough to like have the resources, have the knowledge, the expertise to be able to learn and now execute their vision. And like all of us are just problem solving machines, and we're using this tool to help us do it and to simplify it.
I think there's a piece to that, and there's a book out right now. It's very influential. It's also very controversial, and the book is called Against Empathy, and it talks about how some of human decision making, actually a lot of human decision making on the civilization level, is done through the bias of empathy. And when we see a child on the transplant list and we hear her story, we become very empathetic. And there's even a case study in the book where, when given the opportunity to move her to the top of the list, you will do so after you've heard her story, after you've empathized. Maybe not understanding that you've actually killed a child by doing that. Yeah. You've literally killed somebody else. And sometimes I think this is one of the things that I hope, as somebody who loves philosophy as well, is I hope that AI will allow us to make decisions that we can't make on our own. And I know that sounds a little bit morbid in some instances, but AI will have the ability to see the resources that we have available and determine the best case scenario for us as a society versus for us as individuals. And that I know that statement that I just said, if you were born in Asia and raised in Asia, you're going, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like it's all for the greater good. If you were born in America, you're probably you're on Twitter right now calling for my death.
There's Nostr for that.
It is a world. Yeah, right. Now I'm going to have to go to Nostr but it's a worldview. It's a worldview where the cultures in Asia, and I think you even see this. There's this great show. It's about the little kids going out. It's on Netflix right now. It's called Old Enough, I think, and it's about, in Japan, starting at the age of 2 years old, children start doing the grocery shopping, picking up dry cleaning, going to the fish market on their own, navigating public transportation, walking the streets on their own. It's like, when Americans see this thing, I mean, there's 47 episodes. I watched every single one of them because I'm just like sitting there glued to the television like, he's 26 months old and he's got a bus pass and a backpack on and he's carrying a piece of tuna to his grandfather. I'm like, this is crazy. And they start really small in that, in the Asian cultures. But by the time these kids reach 7 or 8 years old, they have a feeling of community, because you'll see it in the show. When a little 2.5, 3-year-old gets on the bus, immediately all the adults remember from their childhood, their first experience. Oh, is this your first task that you're doing for mommy? Yes, it is. Now, is there do you have instructions on where to go? Yes, mommy gave me this. Okay, well, you're going to get off at this. We'll make sure that they assist them in that, because they see that as building their society from the ground up. On the flip side, Americans, let's just be honest, there's a reason that a lot of other countries don't like us. We have this very autonomous, we'll burn the whole thing down just so that we can survive. And that's probably not the best. It works okay to keep our genetic code going. It doesn't work okay to keep the evolution of humankind going. So I think that's what AI can do, is it can help us make decisions that won't be as influenced by our bias. Now, I will say, and I don't want to get on too much of a diatribe here, I've had multiple female executives reach out to me and say, I tend to find ChatGPT to be sexist and misogynist. And I agree with them. It is, under the right circumstances. But why is that? Well, I think it's a little racist too. Why? Well, because if you look at all of the human information that we've written that's been fed into ChatGPT, it's all a little racist, biased, and misogynist, right? So ChatGPT isn't the racist. We are the racists. And all it did was just learn from the data set that we fed it, meaning that we've got to understand that, and we have to know how to compete with that bias. And one female CMO here in town, I told her, I said, go in and first and say to ChatGPT, I want you to imagine you're a 43-year-old female with 3 children and a husband. You're living in the suburbs in this zip code. You went to this university. I need you to craft a message that delivers this point to her. And you'll get a very different opinion, because it will take all of the subsets of the data out that are male oriented, and it'll push them to the side, and it will think through the content that it can determine is more female. I know I just went on a long dissertation there, but does that make sense? I mean, is that what you're seeing as well? And what are your hopes for humanity with this thing?
Yeah, my hopes is that right now I'm thinking mainly in terms of learning tools for my own personal applications, and thinking about how I can make lives easier for creators to take what they know. Everybody knows something unique and special that they should be sharing with others. Everyone has a unique perspective. So I think using AI in the way that helps them get their message across in terms of an ebook or a course, or use the same asset being information that's documented, and feeding it into different applications to produce videos, to do transcription, to take existing courses and be able to output it in a different language. So now more people can benefit from that knowledge. And I think one person, normally you'd have to have teams of 20, 30 people, right, assisting you with something like this endeavor, pay contractors. Now, if you can use an AI that costs a fraction of that to help you still spread your message and to get more content out, even if it's not a perfect translation, it's still much more than what you would be able to do otherwise. And you can use the new revenue that you generated to then perhaps hire someone to perfect it, or maybe the technology becomes more advanced between that period of time that passed. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of, is how do I help people learn faster? How do I help people learn more effectively? And then how do I determine Pomodoro, or not Pomodoro, I'm sorry, Pareto principle, which is what is the 20% of the information that they really need to know for 80% of the results? And I think AI, to your point, being able to determine that, giving it the context of who the individual is based on demographics, and then the course, the content, doing some prompt engineering, and then having that desired output be great for the user, and figuring out how do I get to that end state. So that way creators can earn more money, especially educators, which is the creator that I'm focused on most, as well as learners get the most out of my platform.
I like that. And I think, I want to even talk a little bit more about the Pareto principle. You mentioned 2 of my favorite words, Pareto principle and Pomodoro technique. If anybody doesn't know about the Pomodoro technique, that shit will change your life. Yes. It literally will change your life. If you're unfamiliar with the Pomodoro technique, you can probably find videos of me talking about it online because it is life-changing. But when it comes to the Pareto principle, my day job is process automation. That's what we do. We're process engineers and miners for organizations. And we go in and we look at the minutia and the details and the interaction with customers and how many seconds does it take to greet a customer and how many seconds do they sit in the chair and how many seconds does it take to perform the procedure. And we go through, we analyze these things and we try to find these bottlenecks and inefficiency. Many times I talk to CEOs and I talk about the Pareto principle and I say, look, we're not looking at 100%, trying to find the 20%. But then we go to the next step. We then take the 20% and we want to look for the 20% of the 20%. Like I want to look for the 4% of things that we'll get. And if you do the math, if you take it the 80-20 and the 20% equals the 80%, and then you take it again, what you will find is 54% is in the 4%, right? If I can just touch that 4%, I can make a 50. And here's the crazy thing. It's funny that I said 54% because I'm sending an analyst report to a customer this morning and we found one little tiny thing that accounted for 53.8% of all labor in their organization. So it is, that's it dawning on, that's just me realizing how good I am in real time, right? but it's funny that it's 53.8 and 54% is the number that we're looking for. And I think that's so important. I tell people this all the time, and I know my listeners have heard this a million times. This is a Galton board, right? It shows standard deviation of when you drop the little things down through. Guess what? I've done this a million times. Every time, people, it always comes in the bell curve, right? The majority of it is here, but what's out here? That's the reality I want to live in, is this out here on this sort of the edge of the normal, the edge of the standard, but that's where the real interesting stuff occurs. And if you can help me, I'm a writer. I've written 4 books. I know I keep dropping it, but my new one drops today, Adapt Agility. Pick it up on Amazon, everybody. Forward by Aaron Bear, who just wrote Exponential Theory, another great thinker when it comes to thinking about thinking big. But I think about this a lot, and I think about how do we find these little things? How do we augment these little things? The interesting thing with me is I've written 4 books now. A lot of people don't know this, and I actually am doing an interview with a reporter here in a couple of weeks to capture the story. But I was unable to write at all until I was 35 years old. I could not form a sentence on my own. I did not have a very good education growing up. I went to a private religious school, never went to college, never met anybody who went to college till I was in my mid-20s. I worked in private equity, and my dirty little secret was that everybody I ever worked for hired an assistant for me, and they handled all my communication. I was a good verbal communicator. I could stand in front of people. I could do the thing. You asked me to put together a single sentence, it was just impossible. But I used tools like Grammarly. I used tools like hiring an editor that I said, I'm going to write on Saturday. Sit beside me. And as I type out the idea, you go, no, dude, hold on, man. Like that's there. Let me explain this to you for the millionth time. It's not that. And taught me how to do that. Then I used tools like Grammarly. Then when tools like Jasper came out, I started taking the work that I was doing, which had improved significantly at that point. I was getting published, putting it into there and comparing my version to the Jasper AI version and going, okay, why did it move that sentence? Okay, what does that mean? Right? That is augmentation of skills. That is taking a kid that grew up in Central Pennsylvania that has no formal education, that barely made it out of high school, that pretty much taught the Bible. And the spelling of the Bible was spelling class, Bible. That was the extent of the whole learning when it came to spelling, and making them an author. That's what augmentation with AI can do. Unfortunately, it took me 20 plus years to figure it out. I could feed that to AI. I could feed my early writings to AI right now and say, correct this, reference it, expand upon it. And the idea that I have, to your earlier point, Santos, it was so dead on. Everybody's an expert at something. I don't want to go on too much of a rant, but we're having a good time. I remember working with a company years ago, and there was a director there, and this guy looked like he had been run over by a bus 100 times. You could tell the guy he hated everything about what he did. Had no passion, no commitment, mumbling, yeah, whatever. You could just tell he was there. He was a zombie. And one of the days, one of my partners was with me, and she said to him, "What are you passionate about?" And he said, "I'm passionate about gardening." And she said, tell me more about that. And he said, I have 100,000 followers on my YouTube channel. This is like a 65-year-old guy, has a gardening. You watch his videos on YouTube, it's like a totally different person. He is passionate, he's animated, he's charismatic, he's dynamic, he's at work. I'm like, this guy is just a total type because he wasn't passionate about it. He found an opportunity to become a world expert in gardening and share his passion. That's what AI can do. It can take that one little thing about you that you love to do and you get lost in it. You sit down. I did it a couple Saturdays ago, finishing the book. Told my wife, give me like 30 minutes. I want to work on something at the book. Like 6:30, she comes in. She's like, do you want me to order dinner? And it's in like 9 hours. I'm like, what do you mean 9 hours? Like it feels like I've only been 15, right? You know
I
what
know
I'm talking
exactly
about?
what you're talking
flow
about.
State, and you're just loving every second of it. And you're just like, I want more and more of this. That's what AI can do. And I think that is the power that we can unleash with AI, with generative AI. And it just makes us as human beings better.
I totally and completely agree with everything that you just stated. It opens up enormous opportunity, and now combine that with like the possibility for micropayments. Now, this individual, if he has 100,000 followers, being able for the audience to send 100,000 different people to send 1,000 satoshis, like like a quarter of a dollar, 25 cents. But when you have that level of volume of money being sent to this one individual for each video that they publish, it's quite life changing. And then to be able to tip on top of it, to be able to like do live streams and tip or like teach there. This is like the possibility that I imagine. It'll really allow like individual educators of everything, the long tail, not like the Stanford universities, but them too. Also, like they can now reach new markets because they can sell in a global money that's accepted anywhere that's native to the internet. They're definitely going to be included too, but mostly what I'm thinking about right now are the individuals like this gardener that you just talked about, that they can use AI to like bridge the gap and augment the skills that they don't have, and be able to publish high quality content very easily with the 4% of things that you just mentioned that generate 54% of the results. And that can really get someone bootstrapped from like not having any resources or any ability. My background is very similar to yours. And to be able to get them what they need, to be able to get them publishing and to ultimately be making money. So I see all of these tools kind of working together to bring like a new future of like everyone teaching something, everyone being passionate about what it is that they want to do and what it is that they are doing currently. And I'm seeing more and more of that taking place like in our communities here in Phoenix and Tempe as well. I'm seeing that like that growth and seeing that impact happening in real time.
Yeah. I love this. I just wrote it down, get paid for your passion. Right. And I think that's what AI can really do. And, you know, it's interesting. There's I don't recall his name right now, but he's an entrepreneur. I believe he's from Korea. And I watched a video of him one time, and he said, because he grew up poor as well. Right. And I think when you don't grow up with a lot of opportunity, you know, I'm really serious when I said this before. I didn't know anybody that went to college growing up. I've never met anybody that ever went to college. And because of the religious upbringing that I had, you know, it was not considered even an option. It was sort of like, that's for the liberals, right? I mean, it was not something that you even considered. But people being paid for that passion, I think, is really, really important, because when you're stuck inside those bonds of that, it's really hard to see anything bigger than self, and you don't have the tools to make yourself anything bigger. So you really have to claw your way up out of that thing. And I think there's an old saying, and it said that God made men, Samuel Colt made men equal. Right? It wasn't until everybody had a gun that it didn't matter if you were 90 pounds soaking wet and the 350-pound bully showed up. You know what? Yeah, you could take me last week, but I got a Colt pistol now. Like I can even the score. And I think that's really what it's doing, is it's taking this and it's saying it doesn't matter how smart you are, your background, your education. If you're good at something, we can show a way to help you grow that exponentially into something that's completely different. I want to give a last sort of example here, but we can continue to chat. But I was really enamored a few weeks back. I was watching reaction videos, and I've been working on some reaction videos myself of seeing the process of businesses and me reacting to them, because that's what I do for a living. And I came across a group of reaction videos from an influencer that would go on to live streams, people playing video games, and that had no followers, right? I mean, they're literally, they've been doing this for 6 months. Every night they jump on their computer, they're playing a game, they're talking, they're trying to engage an audience, and there's just nobody watching. And part of that process, as you know, is tipping, right? And they go in there and they join, and it's so cool because you can watch the face of the person. As soon as there's somebody playing, they're bringing all their best material out, right? And I mean, there's one person watching, and I've been on live streams before, and you're watching that count and you see people go down and you're like, oh man. And then you see it go up and you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
And then they just randomly tip like $50. And the emotional reaction from these gamers, many times they start sobbing. I mean, they're just literally like, they're so overwhelmed with emotion that this thing that they're so passionate about and they want so badly and they want to be so good at it, and somebody just recognizes that and sends them $50, that is the moment that they go from being an amateur to a professional, because now they've been paid to do something. And it is really, there's one that I saw, I almost was crying. I mean, this girl was just like, she keeps playing and she keeps trying to keep it together. And you could see she keeps looking over like, I thought, is it 50 cents? Like you could just see her looking at it like, holy shit, I got $50 for it. Like I got paid to do this. And I think that's what you're talking about. Empowering people to bring their passion to others and get compensated for that. And to truly have that feeling of being a professional, that's just amazing. I'm excited about the future. In the last few minutes here, jam with me on, what do you see the world 5 years? I can't even say 10 years from now, because 10 years is just so far out into the future. Where do you see AI? Where do you see Web3? And this started as a Web3 podcast. It started with decentralization and DAOs and all those things that we've talked about. But where do you see the world 5 years from now?
I see Bitcoin being more adopted, honestly. I see like a lot more merchants beginning to accept, earn, and transact, pay their suppliers because of the global nature of it. I see like people needing to save on costs. And one way to save on costs is through remittances, which are quite expensive, or payment processors. So I see like that happening. I see more people moving to be content creators and, like you said, following your passions, using AI in more services, offering AI. Like I could imagine, for example, like the Twitch bot, like the Twitch stream, you could have a bot where you can like give back to your audience and tip a bunch of people, make it rain on them with the amount of Bitcoin to like differentiate your stream and bring more people in, people sending you, texting you money. So I see more people moving in the direction of content creators and leaving like large corporations to start their own businesses. And I think we're seeing like that growth now, and also being able to do it with less resources and less capital required, if any capital required at all. So I think that's the direction we're going to be going. Is more entrepreneurship, more tools to help you ultimately like get to that end goal of having a product in market, like an MVP, minimum viable product. I see that's the direction that I hope for, and I also see the direction of like more community being brought back, people meeting in person to chat, to discuss, to share ideas. And that's what we're building here in Phoenix. I also run a nonprofit with Stephen Cole. I know some of your audience might know him. You know him as well. We run the Arizona Bitcoin Network with a few other organizers, and that's one thing that we're really focused on. I also think that a lot more software will be created with new models. So instead of necessarily only focusing on subscription models, you could have microtransaction models as well, which also bridge the gap between like being able to have a larger market size. I also see like with the controversies of like the Google and the Google Play Store and the App Store, people moving back to web applications because you can push code whenever you want. You can build whatever you want. You can own the code base. You can share it whenever. And that will enable like rapid innovation, returning back to the web. And I also think like followings with the power of Nostr and the power of the Lightning Network, combining those two, I I think we'll see like more people being able to retain their following, new badges that can be shared across multiple different sort of like websites. So imagine like as if you get issued a certificate from an e-learning platform, you can now show the certificate on a job board. You can now show this on Fiverr.
I love that.
And so like this, it's like a reputation and communications layer. So I think that's what we'll see is more people creating and founding their own companies, more opportunities to learn and get jobs and show like, hey, I am capable of doing this work. And I also think that we'll see a lot more web applications that move away from mobile apps, at least over like the next 5 years. It might change in the future. And I think we'll see more global remittances and payments occurring with Bitcoin and the Lightning Network because of these advantages, and it being like an agnostic money that it's not related to any one government. It's just native internet money that can be programmable, be sent anywhere, and it can be done super cheaply for literally, like you could do $1 billion Bitcoin payment, and people have done this, and it costs like cents. So I think
right. Versus hundreds of thousands of dollars it would cost to run through, Visa or MasterCard network or even the ACH and Swift code network.
Yes, and people implementing AI to help them basically accomplish their goals faster, easier, and better. Ultimately, that's kind of the future that I see are those like predominant new emerging technology like AI, Lightning Network, Nostr, Bitcoin, and of course the web.
Yeah. Totally. Well, and listen, I think some people say I can't see a future like that. Well, if you would have told me 15 years ago that I would be glued to this thing day in, day out. When I started my first business, I had a bag phone. I remember going through Walmart. I was probably 22, 23 years old. And I had my bag phone in the cart. And these girls came up and they were like, hey, how are you? Like, they're like, this guy must be something. He's got a bag phone. It's like, and now everybody has it. I think I got 30 minutes a month for like $300 back then, right? It was like, it's so outrageous how things have changed. Santos, thank you so much. This was really engaging and enlightening. And I love that you weaved the Web3, because that's what we are talking about, into the AI. I think there's a lot of people talk Web3 and a lot of people talk AI, and they don't recognize that they all really are part of the same sort of ecosystem, and they are interconnected in so many different ways. How do people find out more about what you do, Santos, and LinkedIn? Is that the best way? I don't even know. Do we have each other's emails? We just talk on LinkedIn. So what's the best way to communicate?
Yeah, people can find me. I have a site. It's santos.lol. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. It's 5 Antos, so 5ANTOS Hernandez, HERNANDEZ. But you can find all my socials there. You can find it Emeralize, emeralize.app, and Arizona Bitcoin Network at azb.tc. And lastly, Zebedee, which is ZEBEDEE.io. And you can find our company. And one thing I wanted to mention just real quick is that it's on the same note that you just mentioned. I used to be a semi-pro gamer. A lot of people don't know that about me. I was very competitive playing esports. And I was streaming back in the very, very early days of live stream. And I would never have imagined that people are making literally multi-million dollars doing live streams now. So the future has enormous potential.
I knew very well Hector, Call of Duty, Optic Gaming. I knew all of those guys way back in the day, and Hexy. And he was like the most famous guy in the world at one point in the gaming community. And it's really true. Back then, they were like working for Mountain Dew.
Yes.
And Monster would call, and they wouldn't even ask for money. They'd be like, send us a case of Monster. We'll promote it for you. It's like, no, guys, this is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, it is, So, but no, I totally can relate to that. But Hector, thanks for being here. And thank you all for joining us on this edition of the Convergence. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on all of the Spotify and Apple platforms. And make sure you check out the shorts. We are starting to cut these episodes into all of the social platforms. So make sure you follow us on anything that you follow, and make sure you become a part of the community. All right. Well, thank you all. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to The Convergence. If you want more information about the topics you've heard here today, reach out to us at theconvergencepodcast.com.